Everyone remembers what the ring made of him. Almost no one remembers who he was before it. We call him Gollum now, and that name has become shorthand for everything broken and wretched in Middle-earth. But 500 years before Frodo ever left the Shire, there was someone else. A curious, clever, river-loving creature named Sméagol, who lived an ordinary life among his own people, long before darkness ever touched him. Tonight we don't look at what the ring did to him. We look at who was standing there when it arrived, and why that detail changes everything about how we should understand his fall. Smeagol's people lived far from the peaceful hills we associate with hobbits. They were river folk, distant cousins of the Shire folk, living along the great waters east of the mountains, long before most of their kind ever wandered west into the gentler lands we know from Bilbo's stories. It's easy to forget that hobbits weren't always the settled, comfortable people of the Shire. Once, they were wanderers, river dwellers, forest edge folk, closer to something wilder than the version history remembers. Smeagol, by every account, was the most curious among them. He wasn't cruel by nature. He was inquisitive, restless, endlessly drawn to what lay beneath the surface of things. Literally, he dove into pools. He tunneled beneath roots. He wanted to know what was hidden, what was buried, what nobody else had bothered to look for. In a gentler telling, that curiosity might have made him a scholar, an explorer, someone who spent his life turning over stones simply to see what lived beneath them. But there's a quieter detail buried in his story, and it's the one that matters most. While Sméagol was always looking down, into pools, into burrows, into the dark spaces beneath the world, he stopped looking up. He stopped noticing the leaves on the trees, the flowers opening in the morning light, the simple, ordinary beauty that surrounded him every single day. It's a small image, almost easy to miss, but it says everything about the shape of the person he already was, long before he ever touched anything cursed. That's the part of Sméagol's story that gets lost when we only remember Gollum. His curiosity wasn't a flaw, but somewhere along the way, that same curiosity had already begun curling inward, away from wonder and toward hunger, toward wanting to possess whatever he found, rather than simply marveling at it. This matters because it changes the entire question we usually ask about him. We tend to ask, what did the ring do to Sméagol? But the more honest question is, what was already sitting quietly in Sméagol, waiting for something powerful enough to wake it up? The day everything changed wasn't a battle, or a curse, or a confrontation with anything supernatural. It was a fishing trip. Smeagol and his cousin Sméagol went out together, the way they probably had dozens of times before. Sméagol caught something in the water, not a fish, but a plain golden ring, glinting beneath the surface. And the moment Sméagol saw it, he wanted it, not admired it, not asked about it. Wanted it, immediately, entirely, as though it already belonged to him and Sméagol was simply in the way of getting it back. He asked for it as a birthday gift. When Sméagol, reasonably, pointed out that he'd already given him a present that day, Sméagol didn't relent. The argument escalated, and in a moment that still feels shocking centuries later, precisely because of how mundane the setting was, Sméagol killed his own cousin over a ring neither of them yet understood, in order to have something he had decided, within seconds, that he could not live without. Here's the detail worth sitting with. Tolkien himself made something clear that most retellings gloss over. The ring's power was real, and it was strong, but it worked on what was already there. Sméagol didn't become capable of murder because a cursed object corrupted an innocent soul in an instant. He was already capable of small cruelties, small selfishness, small acts of taking what wasn't his, and the ring simply amplified what already existed, rather than creating something from nothing. That's a harder truth than the simple version of the story. It would be more comfortable to believe that evil arrived that day and hijacked an otherwise good person. But the more unsettling reading, and the one that seems to be Tolkien's real intention, is that the ring is less a corrupting force than a magnifying one. It finds whatever is smallest and most selfish in a heart, and it makes that thing the loudest voice in the room. This is why the comparison to Frodo and Bilbo matters so much, and why it's not really a fair comparison at all. Bilbo held the ring for 60 years and it barely touched him. Frodo carried it across a continent, and, though it wounded him permanently, he never became what Sméagol became. The easy explanation is that hobbits are simply more resistant than river folk. But the harder, more honest explanation is that Bilbo and Frodo were already, in their hearts, kinder and less possessive than Sméagol had been, long before any of them ever touched gold. The ring didn't fail to corrupt them because they were stronger. It had less to work with. That reframes the entire tragedy of what Sméagol becomes. Gollum isn't a monster that replaced an innocent creature. Gollum is what happens when Sméagol's smallest, hungriest impulses are given 500 years and unlimited power to grow completely unchecked, with nothing left in him strong enough to resist. Every quality we recognize in Gollum, the obsession, the paranoia, the endless craving, already existed in miniature in Sméagol, in the boy who wanted a ring so badly he was willing to kill for it in a single afternoon. And yet, this is where the story becomes genuinely tender, rather than simply grim. Because if Gollum is only ever Sméagol amplified, then Sméagol is never actually gone. He's still there, buried beneath centuries of hunger and isolation, still capable, in brief and fragile moments, of loving simple things, the pleasure of swimming, the taste of fish caught fresh from a cold stream, a rare, flickering tenderness towards someone who shows him kindness instead of fear. This is exactly why Frodo's compassion toward Gollum carries so much weight. It isn't naive. It isn't a failure to see the danger clearly. It's recognition. Frodo sees, more clearly than almost anyone else in the story, that Gollum was never a separate, irredeemable creature. He was always Sméagol, still, diminished, twisted, dangerous, yes, but not erased. That's the quiet ache underneath this entire story. Sméagol's fall wasn't a single dramatic moment of corruption. It was the slow, patient work of centuries, taking a small unkindness and stretching it until it swallowed everything else he had ever been. And somewhere in that stretching, the boy who once loved diving into cold rivers and turning over stones just to see what was underneath never fully disappeared. He simply became impossible to reach. Maybe that's the real sadness of Gollum's story. Not that he became a monster, but that he never stopped being, underneath everything, someone capable of wonder. He just spent 500 years being taught, one small cruelty at a time, that wanting something was the same as deserving it. And by the time anyone showed him a different way to live, it was almost, but not quite, too late to remember who he'd been before the water ever gave up its secret. If this story moved you, there are more waiting, quiet corners of Middle-earth that history remembers, but rarely feels. Subscribe and walk them with us.